Assalamualaikum and welcome back to Sisters Corner. We've been talking about interfaith work and the necessity of it in this country or around the globe at the moment and how we can go about that. I'm joined here by Jenny Ramsden, who's a priest and also works as an interfaith worker at the Touchstone
Centre, that's right.
Touchstone Centre.
Yeah.
So thank you again. I know you've been with us for a few minutes. Well, we've been talking, just before the break, we were talking about the challenges facing people who maybe want to, talk to people who aren't like them. And we just started saying, actually, although it can seem challenging, it's not as daunting as it was. So what I'm thinking, Jenny, it'd be quite helpful if we could talk a little bit about some of your actual examples, some of the actual projects that you've done at the Touchstone Centre.
Yeah, sure.
And the reactions, if you like, from women from all different backgrounds and how they found it. That'd be really useful.
So the project we're doing at the moment, the kind of ongoing one that springs to mind, is something called Light in Communities project. That came as a result of my colleagues and I sitting down one day and just hearing yet another news report about faith that was portraying faith in a negative way. And it just made us think, do you know, this is not our experience either of our faith, which brings light to our lives, or of the amazing women we work with from other faiths who also bring light to our lives. You know, this is not what faith is to us. It's not a thing that is dark. It's something that brings light to our lives. So we put together a 6-week programme which looks at the theme of light in our faith traditions. But it's also, we do crafts whilst we're talking, all based on the theme of light. So we've painted candles, we've made candles, we've made stained glass windows, all the while talking about questions like who or what brings light to your life. People have shared all sorts of things about their families or pets or special places or special books that bring them light. And then we've talked about how our faith brings us light as well. But a really important part of that course has been a practical element where we have said, as a group, how are we going to bring light to our local communities? So one of the sessions we have fed the homeless. We worked with the In Touch Foundation, I think they're called.
Yeah, In Touch.
Who do an amazing job feeding the homeless in Bradford on a Monday night. So we went along and helped them one night. We spent an afternoon handing out chocolates and inspirational quotes to strangers, which was well out of my comfort zone, which was amazing because people responded really well. They took the quotes and they read them. One woman who was homeless actually read the quote and started crying and said, "This is a Dr. Seuss quote. My mum read this to me when I was a child." And we spent quite a long time talking to her as a result of that. We gave one to a traffic warden who couldn't believe that anyone had been nice to him because he only ever gets aggravation in his job. And one of the things we did, which I know you know about, is paint stones with kind of messages of hope and peace and leave them around our local community. And coincidentally, we were meeting the day after the Westminster attacks, and it felt really right that we were meeting actually. And we painted these stones with hopeful messages and planted them around the community, including the local mosque. And then you put a picture on Twitter saying, a Muslim lady in Bradford found this outside her mosque today, and it was a stone that I'd painted in the group and that we'd put outside the mosque, so I recognised it straight away. And it was really just amazing for us to think, actually, just for that one moment, that brought light to that lady, and that's the whole point of the project, really, that we're Hindu women, Muslim women and Christian women trying to bring light to other people's lives. And
I mean, that is such a simple thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like you say, we can overcomplicate things, we can try and force people to be a certain way, but actually just creating space that feels comfortable, light and easy for people to drop in and out of, I think makes a huge difference. So we can try and over-legislate sometimes, I think, we've got initiatives on how to national, policy and strategy on integration and all of that kind of stuff. Actually, sometimes it's a room and people and a few pens and a bit of glitter or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be complicated. And that example, with the lady with the stone, when it popped up on my thing, and obviously I know this lady, I just thought, how powerful is that actually? It's just a really simple thing, I think the saying says
It's
faith, love,
hope and love.
Faith, hope and love. And that just could be the mantra for anyone who's interested in humanity, doing better together, actually. So I thought it was just lovely, because like you say, the day after, to come out and to find this, when if you're feeling that, again, Muslims are going to be vilified, Muslims are going to be attacked, you're going to have to apologise for all the nutters in the world. It's quite, it can feel quite oppressive, actually. So I think it was just a beautiful thing, and I wanted to share it, because I just thought, sometimes you don't see the outcome of the work you do.
And it was really lovely to know that it, like you say, we don't often know with the stuff we do whether it makes a difference, but that was nice to hear.
It was lovely. And I think one of the other outcomes, and I'm going to put you both in touch, is that actually she was saying, well, I'd like to join this group, who are these people who are doing this great stuff, and I'd be happy to join them. So I will put you in touch, because I think that's the thing about connections. We can connect to people we've never met in this weirdest of ways sometimes, can't we?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's your project. Is there room for people to come in and join in if they want to?
Anyone can join. Anyone is most welcome to join. We have other ongoing things too. So tomorrow we've got the Square Chapati Club that I know Uzma has talked to you about before. That's another women-only creative space where we talk. Actually, the theme for tomorrow is linked to International Women's Day, which was a couple of weeks ago, so it's Be Bold for Change. So we're talking about how as women we can be bold for change and be change makers whilst making chapatis out of Play-Doh and decorating them, as you do.
Do you know, I was so
it's really good fun.
When I realised they weren't edible chapatis.
Oh,
I really was, and I sound a bit shallow, but but the thing, when we talked about the square chapati with Uzma, we were talking about the non-conformity as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Why does it have to be a square? Why does it have to be perfectly round? And I think there is a tradition in some cultures where, a round chapati means you're a good daughter-in-law, you can cook things nice and well, and I'm kind of going, if you've got time, otherwise when you eat it and you digest it, it's kind of, your tummy doesn't care if it's square or round.
Well, I can remember sharing at the Square Chapati Club with Uzma, the equivalent in my culture, I guess, is making your child's perfect birthday cake and confessing that I have never made any of my children a birthday cake. I can't cook, I'm hopeless. So that guilt that Uzma was talking about, that some women feel when they can't do a square chapati, I said, that's how I feel when I have to go to Asda and buy my children a caterpillar birthday cake rather than make them one myself. Bad mum.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that. I thought you were going to say Yorkshire puddings as the equivalent.
Well, I could definitely never make Yorkshire pudding.
My nephew is fantastic.
Really?
He makes Yorkshire puddings.
That needs lessons, obviously.
No, honestly, he's really good, and he does cook Asian food, but he likes the challenge of cooking, so he makes some really nice shepherd's pies and, does everything from scratch and he loves it. Sauces from scratch,
that
none of this,
amazing.
So it's talents really. So again, Square Chapati Club, people are welcome to just join in.
They're welcome to come to any sessions. Again, if we hold them, they're on our Facebook page and Twitter page. We've got an Interfaith women's book group as well,
which I've not made to yet.
Oh no, that's amazing. They're an amazing group of women, again, from different faiths, and that's something again which just shows that we have got more in common. Every book we read, the themes we can all relate to. No matter we're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, we can all relate to the books we have read in different ways.
So what kind of books have you been reading?
We've read all sorts of different things. We've read The Red Tent, which is an amazing book written by a Jewish woman, which is about the story of Dinah that you find in the Bible and in the Torah, the Jewish scriptures. The last book we read was called The Year of the Runaways, which is about some Indian immigrants, illegal immigrants to this country, but it's really sad. It talks about their lives in India and how they came to try and get here. And then it talked about just how sad and awful conditions are for people in their situation here. So that was very topical and interesting as well. I'm trying to think what else we've read. All sorts. Some are novels, some are kind of biographies and things, but it's a really great group to belong to.
And do you find it quite easy? These are not the kind of projects where you expect hundreds of people to turn up, but do you have a steady supply, for want of a better description, of people who are willing to participate? Yeah,
we do more and more. I don't think it takes time to build up good relationships. So I've only worked at Touchstone for 2 years, but the more you do the work, the more people trust you, and then the more people want to come to the things that you do.
Yeah.
So,
and it's creating that sort of safe space, actually, you know, where people, and like you said, there's some anxiety in the background. There's probably anxiety from some family members as well. Where are you going? What are you doing?
There is from all faith backgrounds. That is the case of kind of, well, why are you going there, and what's your motive, and are they going to try and convert you? There are all those things, but once people come to the things that we do and realise that that is not the case, they are more than willing to come.
Sort of like friendship in the moment, isn't it? It's, you know, come, be part of it. If it works for you, comfortable, stay. If not, you know, it's not a membership club. You know, you don't sign up to anything for life, do you? No. So that's, I think it's quite powerful, really. And the other thing is, a lot of this work, we've just got so many other negative things we were talking about in the media. It's, you know, what we do in our own little sphere and our own little bit of the world that can sort of just help people. It can.
I think it does make a difference. Locally, and then you can come together when things happen nationally and internationally, because you've formed relationships by then and kind of stand in solidarity with each other. So I know we were both at the Bridges Not Walls event, for example, and I do think those are times where if you've built those relationships, you can come together and stand in solidarity together and say, actually, we don't think this is right, and we're going to say so together. And I do think that's a powerful message to give.
And it's really interesting because I think there were probably about 50, 60 people there. Is that about right? But now with the advent of social media, that's multiplied.
Absolutely.
Because although we were there, I know we ended up on the sort of international Facebook page with some of our images from the day. And there's something quite... And I keep coming back to this sort of healing, but also, you know, like you say, it's solidarity. It's, you know, knowing that you're not alone. There's something about that. So, you know, a lot of the posters in a lot of the demonstrations we've seen in the last few, you know, couple of years have been about, you know, we will stand with our Muslim brothers. We will not, you know, turn the other way. We won't, you know, we won't be silent and let them come for another group of people, etc. And it's just, you know, it's what keeps me hope, if I'm honest. You know, some of the work we do is quite challenging. And we have to deal with some of the nasty things that go on in society, but that kind of stuff then, for me, is what energises me. It keeps me going, it sort of recharges my batteries. It's just going, actually, you know what, the world isn't full of terrible people, and they don't all think I'm an awful person, you know, just because of the faith or the scrap of cloth I wear on my head kind of thing, you know. It's really, for me, it's really empowering, liberating thing, you know, being part of things like that in whichever small way. And I've had people saying, why do you bother? What difference does a group of people standing around with, you know, placards and things make? Well, actually, on a very personal level, I think it does. But I think, like I said, with the advent of social media and stuff, you're giving messages to the world. You're combating some of the negativity in the mainstream media, actually, as well as the crazy media, because we've got extremes at all ends, haven't we? You know, so you're combating some of that actually, and I think it's a really powerful thing to do. And you can add a bit of fun. Tell us a little bit about your bridge, because talking about bridges, you're making another bridge. This is I'd like to see someone walk over this bridge, but we're interesting anyway.
So we're also knitting a bridge, which sounds a bit random. It's for the Tour de Yorkshire. Again, it's something that you told us about. The Tour de Yorkshire is coming through Bradford, and they're looking for people, community groups, to create things that will line the way so that it looks colourful when we go through. Our idea, because Touchstone is all about creating bridges between different communities and building bridges, is to knit a bridge. So we have at this moment got a lot of women who are frantically knitting from all different faiths and backgrounds and communities, and the idea is that we will come together and make it into a bridge. I am not convinced that anyone will be able to walk over it. It's more a symbolic bridge, but we are hoping to hang it between two trees, or a church and a mosque, perhaps, just to say, you know, people of Bradford have come together and made this.
And that would be such a good image if it's big enough to do over the road, you know, across. And so,
well, except I was worried that it would fall down and knock all the cyclists off.
Do you know, I bet you anything, there's someone like Dusty could help you with a bit of structure to it.
We might
so you might have a bit of
that,
you know, like tent, fiberglass poles that you use in tenting. You know, to hold tents up or something like that.
To get in touch with you about that.
Because honestly, I was sat there, the things that we worry about, just I love the idea of this bridge, and it's like, but will it stand up? But there will be some creative people who know how to make it stand up.
We'll sort it out.
But I think that's just another example of a very simple thing. So we want Tour de Yorkshire. We're really excited it's coming to Bradford. Obviously, it's a huge cycle race, you know, but we want as many people to be involved with it because it's about sort of pride of place and pride of belonging, and it's celebrating and having a bit of fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. No. But then how do we get lots and lots of people involved, because not everyone is a cyclist. And actually, if you're watching, sometimes they kind of come and whiz past you, and then what's left. And we want to leave a legacy, actually, and we want to leave a lovely family day out for people. So some of the idea, like you say, is the knitting. And
the knitting won't go to waste. We didn't want it to be a waste. So actually, we are going to, when we finish the bridge, all of the what they call the slats are the same length, so we can make blankets out of them. So we're going to, you know, give those to people that need them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I am going to try and knit a panel.
Yay.
Because I can knit in a straight line. That's literally all I can do. But I do need a bit of a guidance on what, you know, measurements are and things like that. So I was when I heard all you had to do was knit in a straight line, I was really excited, because I've been telling my friend, how can I knit bunting? Can you teach me how to knit bunting? She can knit, she can crochet as well. And I said, show me how to do it, but I don't think I'd get much done.
Maybe we should do one together.
That'd be fun.
Okay, you're probably better than me. You'll have to teach me.
I learnt from my school teacher when I was 9, and she was Mrs. Jockin, and sadly I think she might have passed away, but God rest her soul, but a lovely woman, you know, just really took us under her wing, and, you know, it probably helped that I was about this tall, you know, even at 9, I was very tiny, but yes, she taught us how to knit. It was one of our extracurricular activities. So I can knit in a straight line. Fantastic. So that's a good example, actually, of taking an event that in the olden days would have been considered just a sporting event, and actually flipping it on its head and saying, actually, it's a community thing, and it's a way in which we can come together, we can show solidarity, you know, and actually show off the best bits of Bradford. We sometimes get a negative press.
We do get a bad press, but there's loads of amazing people in Bradford doing wonderful things. It's good to showcase that. I
get people sort of on my Twitter feed going, really, this is in Bradford, this is happening here? And I'm like, this is how we roll. Despite what people will tell you, this is how it works. So we haven't actually got that long left together to talk about this fascinating subject. So in terms of, you know, turning up to a group and participating is one thing. I'm just wondering if you've got any thoughts on sometimes some of the real negativities on social media. We've talked about it, haven't we? We've talked about the trolling a little bit. You know, you get some really horrible, nasty, because people are at arm's length, you know, and they don't have to face up to it. So if they were going to say it to your face, they wouldn't say it probably, but because there's that distance there. So what can we do, you know, individually, as individuals, taking personal responsibility to encourage a bit of light and love and tolerance on platforms like that?
I think you've touched on it, really. It is picking out the positive news stories wherever you find them and making sure that they get out there. I think it's challenging people when they write things that you don't agree with. I do think it's important to challenge that in a respectful way, actually. Don't lower yourself ever to somebody else's tone. I do actually think there's a point for stopping engaging, you know?
Disengage
sometimes. I do, and I think sometimes you know if somebody is just deliberately trolling just to get a reaction, and they are never, ever going to stop doing that. I think there's a point at which you just think, okay. So, but mainly I would say just sharing as much positive news as you can, and challenging stereotypes when you see them.
And that's obviously, we've just talked a little bit about social media, but we can do that in our own friends and family networks as well. Because I think that's really powerful, is when you hear your mother, your husband, your nephew, your niece, you know, sort of recycling unhelpful stereotypes or, you know, comments. Actually challenge them, and sometimes one of the best ways to challenge is to ask a question. So why do you think that? Why do you think that's the case? Where did you learn that from? You know, does that roughly seem in keeping with our practices and our principles? And it actually gets people thinking, you know, depending on where you end up down the rabbit hole, it can be a bit scary as well. But generally, people will stop and think, and, you know, if we think about people's feelings, I think that's
definitely
really helpful. Would you like it if it happened to you?
Well, that's exactly going back to love your neighbour as yourself, isn't it? For me, it's thinking, you should always try and act in a way that you would want somebody to act towards you. So don't say something awful about somebody if you don't want them to say something awful about you. So yeah, just always having that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this thing, we talk a lot about tolerance, but actually my mum, and she passed away 20 years this year actually, and she used to say to me, and I definitely remember, she'd say, you know, if you're a decent person, you will find a way to get on with everyone.
Yeah.
Because most people, there may be some people who are genuinely evil and they've got no redeeming features, but most people in our daily life, unless you are involved in the criminal underbelly, you know, kind of world, there is something good to find.
Absolutely,
you know.
yeah, there is, yeah.
It might be, so instead of looking for faults, you look for good stuff. So you might look at, well, yep, they look a bit different, sound a bit different, but actually they treat the mum really well.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really, I've been having more and more of these conversations, because you get racism on all sides, don't you? And you get people going, oh, well, they're English, they're like this, they're like that. And I'm like, well, actually, you know, so-and-so isn't actually married to a partner, but she treats the woman like a mother-in-law, she gives her care responsibilities, she won't go on holiday without them. And actually, let's be honest, we know some Muslim families who won't have anything to do with the mother-in-law if they could. And like, oh yeah. And it's that recognising, actually, we're all human, despite our religion. None of us are perfect, you know. And, you know, the flaws in humanity can unite us as much as the good stuff, you know. But we just need to look a little bit more, I think. So in terms of, we've obviously talked a bit about social media and about personal responsibility. So what more do you think, you know, cities, the agencies, the faith groups, what more do you think we can do?
I suppose it is thinking of more ways for people to meet and engage with each other. Often I think that happens at a faith leader level, which is good, we need that, but a lot more goes on in the community. Money's always a thing. I think, you know, community groups are getting cut left, right and centre. I understand why, but it, you know, that is difficult. So I guess, thinking about how groups can exist and thrive in this kind of climate is difficult, but
So I suppose what we're talking about there is more spaces.
Yeah, more spaces, more funding for spaces.
Sometimes you do need a little bit, but then other times as well, one of the things that I know in Bradford there's going to be a bit of emphasis on is the big lunch, which is sort of operated out of the Eden Project, which I didn't even realise. I just thought it was some initiative somewhere. And that's basically encouraging people to, you know, get a few neighbours together and have a street party, however big or small, actually. So I think that would be quite powerful if people just, there's some hurdles, but then they can be overcome, as people did. But that's just about actually saying, let's get a trestle table out, you know, let's get our picnic tables out and put them on the street, and let's all bring a bit of food and share it together.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated is what I'm saying.
No,
you know.
No, it doesn't. No, there's all sorts of things like we've talked about that really don't have to be complicated, actually. And
the other thing that I wanted to mention was, if interfaith work seems too scary for people, it's too much, I don't want to talk to you about religion or whatever, actually, if you get involved in your neighbourhood group, so if you get involved in your local friends of the park group or your let's clean this area up group, or friends of whichever farm, or supporters of the hospital trust or whatever it is, actually you will meet people from all different backgrounds, but talking about other things, so you don't have to talk about religion.
No, and even interfaith isn't always, it's really not just sitting down and talking about faith the whole time. It really is talking about what it is to be a human being in the world, and we can all talk about that.
And all the challenges that we all have. So, wow, it's just been really wonderful talking to you, Jenny, and all I can say is thank you so much, and thank you for everything you do to make this world a better place. And it's a pleasure working with you, and the few bits of pieces of times we've crossed. One day I will get to that book reading, hopefully. So if you want to get in touch with Jenny, the website, Facebook or Twitter, it's Touchstone Bradford. Twitter, your Twitter handle is Touchstone3.
That's right,
interestingly enough, and there's a picture of Jenny on there. So if you've got any thoughts about these issues, etc., I'm on Twitter as well as Amria Cartoon. Just let me have your thoughts. Otherwise, we are at the end of our show this week. So once again, thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
It's been fantastic. Thank you. So inshallah, see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.